really want to share your biggest tip on self-care. Each of your perspectives is so different, and I think everybody should do all three of what you guys do in their day. But kind of, Scarlett, start us off. Tell us about your magic.
In terms of self-care, I would say it's an intuitive process, and that's part of the self-care too, is allowing every day to be its own dynamic unfolding of what the body needs in that moment, which when I do that and I create the space for that, it not only deepens my connection to my body, but it deepens self-trust, it deepens my gifts, and it allows what the body needs. And the body to me is its source, it's beyond intelligent. It's always completely in alignment with what it needs to come back into balance. So if I listen to my body and I let my body take the lead, I get to experience this unfolding that feels very spiritual. And what that looks like in terms of action steps outwardly is I move very slow. I take time to breathe. Right now, I'm training myself to recognize, when am I feeling safe in my body? What's going on with my parasympathetic nervous system? What's going on with my sympathetic nervous system? And being in awareness of how I can either, uptick things or downtick things to create this sense of balance. And it's not that one state is good and one state is bad, but I'm deepening my connection to self so that my embodiment continues to unfold in a healthy way. And I do a lot of baths. I get a lot of massages. I got a 2-hour massage last night, and then I came home and I took an Epsom salt bath. And then this morning I rode my horse. So there's always an unfolding of something I'm doing for myself every day. And that range can be very big.
Thank you so much. And to be vulnerable for a moment, you were so supportive in a mini freak out I had, I feel, a couple months ago. And I was like, what is the breakthrough happening for me and this identity? And you reminded me that the journey is an intimate process, like you just said. And I think that intimacy, I was trying to control my way through. And I think when you're, in peak performance or, kind of type A, like I am, it feels like it's an either or, when that's not necessarily the case. So I love what you do, and we're going to talk products in a little bit because everyone's going to get a really awesome discount because I'm obsessed with your CBD.
Awesome.
Dr. Jason, I'm so curious. You're sharing the Inner Runner book, which I haven't even had a chance to absorb yet, but what is some of the self-care movement that you want to share with us?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that, and that actually ties into the book I'm writing now, is that people tend to forget that we're animals first. And so the body should always come first. It's the body that leads the brain, not the other way around. And so we can make our physical exterior strong and resilient and enduring. That changes us on the inside. That changes the brain. That changes your mind. That changes your approach to life. And so I take more of a physical, it's a purely physical approach to life, because life is physical. That's, the human existence is physical. And so I think in our society, we get so focused on, the brain activity, we get so focused on intellectual activity and our work, and we have become a very sedentary society because of that. And I think that hurts our society. In fact, if you think of this from an evolutionary standpoint and how we got to where we are, evolution hasn't stopped just because we are where we are now. We're just one stop on the highway. A million years from now, a human being, if we go on the road that we are now, a million years from now, 10 million years from now, a human being is going to look very different. We're not going to have the physical characteristics that we have, because the physical characteristics that we have evolved from a physical life. The arch of our foot looks the way it does for a reason. We were meant to run. We ran, and so we adopted characteristics of our physical being that enabled us to run, and all the things that we have on our body. And the way our body is structured, is that way for a reason, because we evolved physically. And so, in order for evolution to keep going on this path, we have to still be physical. Otherwise, a million years from now, if we came back and looked at what a human being would look like, we would be very different, because we're going to lose the ability to be physical, because we're no longer physical the way our ancestors were. So it all starts with the body. The body is the chief executive officer, and the brain is the chief operating officer. Life is very physical, and we tend to forget that. And there's so much evidence, there's a lot of scientific evidence to show how exercise, especially aerobic exercise, changes us on the inside. It changes the chemistry of the brain, it adds neurons in the brain, and then that changes the way we think. It makes us smarter, it improves our memory, and there's so much evidence to support that. And so anyway, this is a long way of saying that we have to get back to who we are as animals, and the way we take care of ourselves is taking care of the body, remembering that we are animals, just like your pet dog or your pet cat. We really are no different. The only thing that makes us different is that we have a more highly processed brain. Physically, we are very much the same. We share these biological attributes with so many other animals. And so we have to get back to what it means to be an animal in a physical life.
I think that's such a unique avenue to take personal development into that's really accessible. I think online we hear so much of, master the diet plan, and hit the calorie deficits with exercise. And the truth is, when you come from a place of a natural being and understanding that there's biology happening, for me, what I feel is when I hear you saying like that the muscle parts, right, the strengthening, the resilience that comes from being in an active body, for me as a holistic nutritionist, what it shows is that there's this cellular turnover, right? It's an avenue to upgrade a certain frequency inside of yourself, a certain cellular pattern, to clear out some of the gunk. Like, we forget that our bloodstream is like a freeway, and if you're throwing sugar down it, you better burn it, kind of thing. I know Laura's smiling, I know you know. And I'll get off my soapbox in a second. And the second part, right, is that our lymphatic system is constantly overturning, and running is such a great avenue of that way that we can detoxify, that we can, begin to pee out who we were and really focus on what's next. What am I putting in front of my body to overcome some of the nourishment deficits, to regulate the nervous system? And you're right, to amplify, creativity, whether that's through exercise, or, neuroplasticity components too. So thank you for offering that, it's so simple, right? Put your shoes on and get out the door. And yet we get caught up and deprioritize some of the natural being aspects. Miss Laura.
Well, I picked a card from the deck.
Oh, perfect. That's great.
That perfectly complements Scarlett and Dr. Jason, because I definitely want to get into my bath and get out, get my body running, and then get into the bath. Though I don't run, I walk. But we move, we take care of our body, and we also need to take care of our mind. And the card that came up was practice radical self-acceptance. Because I think a lot of us are compassionate with other people in our lives, and we miss the compassion that we could actually have for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So the back of the front of the card is a practice, and the back of the card is a principle. And the principle, the principle is on the front, and the back is the practice. So the practice is an affirmation to start the process of radical self-acceptance that says, I love myself so much so I can love others more deeply. I love myself so much so I can love others more deeply. And what that means to me is, if we take on our own honoring of ourselves, being kind to ourselves, being gentle with ourselves, doing what Scarlett said, slowing down, right? It means, and then, it means not beating yourself up because you're not exercising, but gently acknowledging where you're at and doing what you can from there. It's the mindset that really helps you integrate the good self-care and the body movement. And it starts with accepting where you're at. I had a mentor who once said to me, you know, if you haven't been exercising for a while, don't beat yourself up about it. Put on your sneakers today and acknowledge yourself that you just put on your sneakers. You know, and then if you do something else, great. If not, you're great for just putting out your sneakers. Maybe you can take a step out the door tomorrow. And like, it's just like teaching a baby to walk. It's like, a baby doesn't just stand up and walk. They have to fail a few times. They have to go through a process. They pull themselves up and they plop back down, and they don't say to themselves, I'm a stupid baby, I'm never going to walk. No, they're like, oops, they're just in curiosity mode. They're accepting their body as it is. They see these big people around them that can walk. So of course they can walk too at some point. It's just going to be happening. And that's where we have to be, is in a state of curiosity and acceptance of where we are right now. And things get easier that way. The more we are kind to ourselves. And then guess what? The more kind we are to ourselves, that leaks out into the world. And that's where the affirmation, I love myself so much so I can love others more deeply. So it just is a self-fulfilling kind of pattern you get into of expanding love in your own being and in your life.
Thank you so much. And I think the radical acceptance to connect the dynamics of like, oh, training for a half marathon seems very vigorous, and I've done it multiple times. And a different me comes out when I have that on my plate, whether it's, the Excel sheet of like what I quote unquote should do and not. And, when I'm doing yoga twice a day, because I'm committed to that version of something, a different me comes out. But the truth is that I'm the constant. And so often I think people go, oh, the external world or my situation is now imposing this on me. So I need to like this fronting battle that happens.
Right.
When actually there's a lot more security to like be felt, and we just aren't feeling it.
Yeah. And I wanted to acknowledge Sharia for giving a little clap. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Scarlet, Jason, Laura, I think each of you bring such a different tool to the table. So I want to talk tools. I want it to be practical so that people can really know what it means to start something for themselves. We did a lot of envisioning this morning. And so I know people are like, I'm in my way with myself there, and I get to be kind to myself here. So like we have that energy already. And so how can some of the things that have really changed your life take root in someone else? And what have you seen work maybe in like the people you've worked with? Just give that context.
Should I go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. I think for me, it starts with my individual gift and what is my individual gift. And then how do I create a bridge to others so that they can expand that for themselves? And my gift is seeing the unseen, playing in the unseen realms, and stepping into the knowing or the full remembrance that I'm an ascended master of my own universe. And I'm here to embody that knowing. So what are the practical steps to have such an empowered self-view? What are the practical steps to know that there's nothing wrong with you, know that you don't need fixing, and know that you are made in the likeness of source and everything else is just noise? So how do we get to a practical application of stepping into that empowered knowing? And to me, that's the resonance of sovereignty, and it's the resonance of empowerment. And what I share in my mystery school, which is why I launched the Naked Starseed Mystery School, was to give more than just one person at a time access to these different steps into embodying this reality. And the practical steps for me that I start everyone on is mind training and having an awareness in your mind of what you're repeating to yourself in your head, because you're the creator of your own universe. So have an awareness of your self-talk and where are you at in your mind. And I take people through individual steps of what's going on. Like, oh, I have this fear. I have this fear of moving forward. I'm not in the job I like. There's a whole array of where someone could be and where they're resonating at. And then I take them into the place of their heart. I guide them into the safety of their own body. And we explore facing that fear with an open heart, because truly, as soon as you look at something head on, that's a part of you, and you accept it with unconditional love, it transmutes back to the light of source that you are. And then you feel lighter, you feel more embodied. And it's really about stacking these moments next to each other, one after another. It's a practice. And over time, you strengthen the ability to focus your mind, which strengthens the ability of the emotions you feel in your body, which creates self-trust, creates connection to these unseen realms where these higher vibratory frequencies can influence you into knowing higher wisdoms without having to go to someone externally. The whole purpose of the mystery school is your source. You don't need Google. You don't need to ask someone else's opinion. There's a process for you to tune into this all-knowing source of all things and have instant downloads, which will then amplify the light in your body, which will then give you a greater sense of empowerment. And it's from this place we create the life we want. We get the house we want. We get the partnership we want. We really shape the light of our own experience through this world into exactly what our soul desires. And we train our mind to knowing that whatever happens in that realm around us, it's for us. It's something we created and we agreed to before we came into form. And it's here to get us to that place of ascended mastery. Literally everything going on in your realm is here to help you ascend into your greatest self, everything. And if you train your mind to see the world like that, you become a sovereign being and you become very empowered. So I know that was a lot, but that's kind of a large overview with some little practical steps that I like to impart onto people. And it wasn't until I accessed training my mind when I got the key to my own existence. I had done the yoga, I did the training, I did the massage, I did everything under the sun. And when I started navigating and focusing my own thoughts where I wanted them to be, my entire life changed.
Yes, I'm so grateful for you to share the idea and concept of embodiment. If it's new, if it's not new, it's a great reminder. And thank you for being a woman of high personal responsibility is like what it feels like for me. I know that we are a little bit behind on time, Camille. Graciously, we are going to get to, don't worry. I want to make sure that Dr. Jason and Laura share their understanding. And I hope that downloads in you right now. So I don't want to like rush things, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put Scarlett's tool in the chat. Always, like we said before, you can go to firewavewellness.com/vision vault, and that's where everybody's things are. But specifically to go in, the medicine that she provides you is that access point to feeling your sovereignty, to getting yourself there, and then using the plant world around you. Hopefully that's the simplest I'm going to go for it. I can keep talking, but I'm not going to. Okay. So Jason, I want to talk about the inner runner. What are the ways when people read it, when they absorb it, when they're planning and figuring out how to integrate more self-care, what can we take away from that book that you're sharing?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's about the physical act. With me, it's always been about the physical act. Everything starts from the body, and I really think that all these companies with their slogans, probably the best slogan really that any company has ever had is Nike. Just do it. I mean, that really applies to so many things in a person's life, because as humans, we tend to overthink things. We doubt ourselves about things. We get in our own head, and if you just throw all that away and just do the physical act, that changes your entire world. If we can make like I said before, if we can make our bodies strong, our bodies resilient, our bodies enduring, that changes us on the inside. It changes our approach to life. Specifically with running, one of the things I learned as a kid is that when you do a hard workout, when you do an interval workout, or when you run a race and it's physically uncomfortable, that teaches you something. It teaches you to be able to handle that discomfort. And that's a life lesson. Then you can take that to other areas of your life that are uncomfortable. And so one of the things that running has taught me, and it teaches a lot of other people, is this ability to deal with discomfort. And then when you have uncomfortable moments in your life, you remember that. You remember what it felt like in a race, and what did you do? You're presented with a question. Do you back off from that physical discomfort to make it feel a little better? Or do you push through that to find out what's on the other side? And that's something that traverses every area of your life. And so for me, it's always started with the physical. And that's what I always try to tell people, is that, it's the physical act that comes first. You don't believe in gravity and then see an object fall to the ground. You see an object fall to the ground, and that's what makes you believe that gravity exists. And it's the same thing with running or with anything else. Like you mentioned about training for a half marathon before. Nobody believes that they can run a half marathon and then go and do it. You do it first. You run a mile first, and then you believe, yeah, I can run a mile. Look what I just did. Let me try to go for 2 miles. Oh, look, I just ran 2 miles. Let me try for 3 miles. The belief comes from the evidence that you can do it. And so, I'm always telling people to get out of their own head and just go and try. And if you can only run for 1 minute before you have to stop, then run for 1 minute. And guess what? If you do that for the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to run for 2 minutes without stopping.
And those are the baby steps that make such a big impact, right? Taking action, being in the safe space to create something. And what I love is that there's a lot of differences right now. I hope you're feeling rubbed. I hope that you begin to experience and create those value structures like we talked about this morning for yourself. For me, I hear in Dr. Jason that it's a sensory experience, right? We're overstimulated by technology or this or that. And the relationship to our sensory experiences tells us something about our soul. And so thank you so much. And the inner runner, I'm excited to learn into, and I think you're right that, we just get to keep practicing learning about ourselves. I'm sorry, doctor. I'm gonna call everyone doctor. Just a label.
Coach Laura.
Laura, take us home. Share everything that I know to be true about how you coach and train and transform people and hold them in their autonomy, I think, too, and your practical tip.
Yeah, I picked another card. And this is one that we can actually practice being gentle with yourself. Mistakes involve the creative process when you learn from them. And I love the word mistake because it's a mistake, just a mistake, right? And the encouragement on the back, the practice is to just try again and again. Don't give up. Just like Jason was saying, it's about you run your first 100 yards, then you run your next quarter mile, right? And don't give up if you have that as a goal to move your body in that way. And it's just powerful when you can give yourself the gentle nudges in kindness, in love. It becomes a practice that just ripples out into the world. And we want to see a more loving, harmonious world out there. And it starts within. It starts within. And it starts feeling good in your body, like Jason said. It starts, like Scarlett's talking about, intuitively tuning in and facing those feelings and being with those feelings. I think both Jason and Scarlett are talking about that. Not disowning them, not resisting them, just breathing through them so that we can breathe through to resolve them. And it's not going to get resolved necessarily up here. It's a whole body process. It's physical, it's emotional, and then the mind follows that. I like how Jason said, the mind follows the body, right? Well, yeah. And the body has these emotions in it too. And if you can take your direction from the deep message of the emotion, not the mind who wants to resist and avoid the emotion, but the message that your soul, your emotions are your soul's language. It's the only language your soul has to speak to you. And when you're feeling something negative, it doesn't mean you say, nope, I've just got it. That just means I shouldn't. It means I want something that's underneath that. I want joy. I want you to hear me. I want relief, but I don't, it's not about denial or avoidance. It's about processing my emotion. Hear me, see me, feel me. Think, and then think after. And, you know, this is deep work. Every time I present these feminine power cards to people, they're like, wow, these are great. And on this, you can take them at a surface level, or you can go really deep with them. You can, you know, and I'll
Do you
coach
recommend
people.
doing them daily, or?
I do. I recommend having them at your desk side, you know, and your bedside. And when you're going through something, this is how I developed them. My story is that I was going through a really growth time. I had a dark night of the soul moment, and in time that spurred me onto this, and to go and find out, how can I have a juicy, harmonious relationship in my life when I'm feeling so crappy? And the first relationship I had to develop was with myself. And every time I got a nugget of information, I wrote it on that I wanted to embody, live, and feel fully. I wrote it on an index card, and they have now become the feminine power cards.
I love that.
And I use them, those index cards, when I would be like in an angst moment and not really knowing what to do, what tool to use. I would flip through the cards until the one that said, oh my God, yes, I am not presencing love. I need to presence love. I need to do that. And then the practices came afterwards, but you know, the practice for presencing love is pray for heart opening, practice seeing through the eyes of love. Like, okay, that's not just I can do that. It's like, well, how do I do that? What do I need to do to presence love and see through the eyes of love?
Yeah.
And where can you do that? Can you do that even at the gym? Like, you're looking at other people and you're criticizing yourself. No, if they can do it, I can do it, would be more of a loving way to think about it. It's like, oh, they're out here, they're doing something, I'm doing something, we're doing it, I'm using this energy together. I love that we're all here together. And then you presence that love.
So powerful. And thank each of you. Laura, if you want to put your own link, I know we changed things last minute, so I don't have it. So you can put that in the chat. How the rest of this afternoon will go is, you know, like, you get it in the chat. You also get it in firewavewellness.com/visionvolt. All three of you bring such magic that resonates on all different levels. And I think it's so important that we honor all aspects of this. And thank you guys for continuing to show up and support me in this movement. And it continues to grow. And it's just so cool to like have, you know, like you guys together, but then like more people here today. So thank you each so much. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mia.